A big trade is on the horizon for the Toronto Maple Leafs as a new report from Friedman has revealed a major Leafs trade update surrounding one of their defensemen. We're going to break down that report and discuss exactly what it means going forward, as well as discuss some Joseph Woll updates. We have a couple updates on that front. Stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get into it, quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. If you're a part of the 70% who aren't subscribed, it would mean the world of Darius myself. You could hit that button. We produce daily Leafs content, and we will be going live tonight after the Devils game for a live stream, so make sure to tune into that. And shout out to everybody who tuned into our stream yesterday. That was a fun time, so thank you guys for your continued support. And Darius, we have some news. It is now, we've had the night to kind of be sad over our loss against the Montreal Canadiens, sorry. And now the Toronto Maple Leafs play the New Jersey Devils, a Sheldon Keefe reunion, I guess, to a degree here. And it's going to be a fun game, but some news dropped yesterday and earlier today as well surrounding Timothy Liljegren. And it's a very interesting report here, and especially considering the fact that Connor Timmins had a bit of a rough game yesterday against the Montreal Canadiens. But you can see here, Friedman dropped the bomb saying the Leafs are working to find a landing spot for Timothy Liljegren. He's fallen down the depth chart, and the current situation is one that nobody is happy with. Now, Darius, again, we saw this, and then yesterday we saw Connor Timmins have a bad penalty. He had some turnovers in the zone there, so it was a rough day for him. And again, I think they're going to give him another chance. We haven't gotten the lines out quite yet, but it seems like Timothy Liljegren is on the way out of Toronto because they're working to find a landing spot for the defenseman who has grown unhappy with the situation, and one that nor Liljegren or the Leafs are happy with.
Yeah, so obviously he's lost his place in the depth chart here. He's fallen down quite a bit, right? Because, earlier in the summer he was projected to be the second pairing defenseman there on the right side, but obviously we all know that, that wasn't really going to work out. Like we didn't know how the lines were going to work out. But obviously he's lost his spot. Now he's sitting in the press box, and he's sitting in the press box making $3 million. That doesn't work for him as a player because he wants to get into games, and it doesn't work for the Toronto Maple Leafs because they're already up against the cap, and something has to happen here before November 1st when a couple of guys come back off the IR, or the LTIR, I should say. And it's just not going to work for them. You can't have $3 million in a defenseman sitting in the press box, right? And obviously they've made their choice. It's Connor Timmins over Timothy Liljegren, probably for a couple of reasons. If you watched the game last night, did he look good? No, he didn't have the best game. But Connor Timmins is at least trying to play the system and at least play Craig Berube's game and be physical. I haven't seen that from Timothy Liljegren in his career to this point. Would it change? I don't know, but based on, the practices, the preseason, and the scrimmages, all that stuff, obviously the coaching staff did not see that from him, and that's why he's not in the lineup. So for me, if you're the Leafs looking at $3 million sitting upstairs every game, and he might even play tonight just because, you want guys in and out, and they have a lot of extras right now. Even Bobby McMahon we might see him tonight. We're not too sure on that yet. They haven't skated yet, but I'm sure we'll see him a little bit here and there, but he's lost his place in the depth chart, and something has to give before November 1st, like I said, right? Because a couple guys are coming off LTIR. They have to move some salary. If you don't think Liljegren's going to be in your lineup every night, and the battle's between him and Timmins right now, what happens when Hakanpää comes back? You have a three-way battle for one spot. It doesn't work, especially with how close to the salary cap that they are. So it seems like right now, Timothy Liljegren is on the way out. And I still think he's a great NHL defenseman. He'll have a great career, probably somewhere else if that's the route they're trying to take. And it sounds like that. But, at the end of the day, he doesn't, to me at least, seem like he's going to be able to play Craig Berube style hockey. And I think the team is still adjusting to that, as we saw last night. So he's probably the odd man out at this point.
Yeah, there is a world where he plays tonight instead of Connor Timmins. I doubt it, but there's definitely a world where that happens. And ultimately, Friedman, basically, they're trying to find a landing spot for Timothy Liljegren. Now, the teams that can, trade for Liljegren, there's probably a good few of them. Obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of young teams out there as well that would want to take a flyer on a high upside defenseman who's fairly young still in his career and now has a couple of years of control. So we know that Berube spoke out a little bit, and there's been some things about what he said about Timothy Liljegren's game, last week. He said Lily's got to do things quicker. He's got to be a little bit heavier in his battles and move his pucks quicker and simplify the game. He's obviously battling. He wants to be a guy in the lineup every night, and that's great, but sometimes you kind of put too much in your plate, right? Simplify the game a little bit more. If I had to say anything, simplify his game a little bit more. Do his job as a defenseman, killing plays and being heavy, and that's what Connor Timmins did yesterday, even though it wasn't in the most effective fashion. We know that everybody played Craig Berube style for the most part yesterday. It obviously didn't translate directly to a win. I still thought they had a very solid game ultimately, and that's the kind of they didn't deviate from the style. Now, obviously, you're not going to win games scoring 0 goals, but I think tonight against the New Jersey Devils, if they play the same way they did yesterday with a bit better, some more high danger chances rather than just throwing the puck at the net, I think that we got better off than yesterday at least. But yeah, it seems like even last week before the rosters were finalized, Berube was hinting at the fact that Liljegren still has to earn this spot, and maybe for Timothy Liljegren, he thought his spot was pretty much secure after signing that 2-year, $6 million contract last season.
Yeah, hopefully they get some puck luck tonight in the game, which they didn't last night. And, they could have easily had maybe 2 goals there. But anyway, that's last night's game. We move forward to today. But when talking about Liljegren again and Timmins, right? Like it was very evident yesterday. He didn't have the best game, Connor Timmins, but he's doing the simple things. And I feel like the last couple of years, we talked about it on stream, the Leafs have been overcomplicating so much, especially for the defensemen the last couple of years with a lot of different systems and the way you want to move the puck or hold on to the puck. And I feel like now Berube is just saying, you saw it yesterday. It was on display in the game against Montreal Canadiens where they're doing little chip passes or they're just throwing it off the glass and out, right? Like these simple plays that go back to the basics. So, Timothy Liljegren has fallen victim to that. As you watch him, through the years, there's moments of brilliance where you're like, okay, like there's flashes of something here where you can be a really good offensive defenseman or two-way defenseman. But then there's other times where he just overcomplicates the play way too much. And, there's other players like Connor Timmins that just aren't doing that right now. Maybe Berube likes that, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing to win the Stanley Cup. You got to be able to do the simple things, right? When it comes down to it in those tight games, that's all that matters, not making the most complicated plays. So I think Liljegren's fallen victim to that. He doesn't play, physical enough for me. I think that's something Berube is probably looking at as well. And again, he's just overcomplicating his game, and the Leafs just don't need that anymore. That's just not the style that they're going to play. And, it's going to be a learning curve for everybody. But until he learns that, and I don't know if he has enough runway to learn that here in the next month, it seems like they've already kind of moved off of him.
Yeah, which is unfortunate for him, but it'd be interesting to see what happens in the game tonight surrounding Liljegren and company. But speaking of the game tonight, we know that yesterday, they obviously Toronto, Dennis Hill to be the whole situation here. But Darius, we know that yesterday, if you tuned into our stream, you saw it. The Leafs moved Woll to the injured reserve. By placing Woll on the IR, the goaltender is forced to be out of the lineup for 7 days, meaning he will not dress for the club's next 3 games. And now their game is obviously tonight, and maybe Dennis Hildeby will be the guy that starts. It's up in the air. Craig Berube was asked about it after the game yesterday. He says they're still making a decision. So we'll obviously see probably in a few hours' time here regarding who's going to start. But at this point, we're either going to see Anthony Stolarz back out there for the second night of a back-to-back, or we're going to see Dennis Hildeby make his NHL debut tonight against the Devils. I'm leaning more towards Stolarz, given the history there with his family living in New Jersey and the importance of the game, especially after dropping the first one. Obviously, it's only the first game of the season. It doesn't really matter. It's super early. But still, it's important that the Leafs get off to a decent start here. But my money is on Anthony Stolarz starting. But regarding Woll, very concerning again. And what turned into him being positive a couple nights ago on Sunday and interviewing with the media turned into a 7-day injured reserve stint.
Definitely concerning, but at least he's not on the LTIR, right? So we'll see him again next week, and hopefully he can get his season started on the right track. So I still believe in Joseph Woll and his skill, but he's just got to stay healthy, and that was really concerning already yesterday. But at least they have goaltending depth in Matt Murray, Dennis Hildeby, these guys. So I'm not necessarily worried. And as we saw with Anthony Stolarz and the way he played yesterday, I'm not worried. This is a guy who can take over the starter's job, I think. And you've been saying it all summer, right, Nick? So I think it's definitely possible, but it gets a little complicated now. I'm not sure, because it's emergency basis. And obviously with the salary cap, if Matt Murray can come up, because, I was leaning towards maybe Stolarz starting again tonight, and then maybe Matt Murray comes up for Saturday's game, because I think they really want Dennis Hildeby to just play with the Marlies. The Marlies start on Saturday. I don't think they want him to start with the Leafs yet, really ease him into things, but there's a real possibility we see him on Saturday just because of the salary cap and the call up and everything, because Woll is on IR. So real possibility we see Hildeby in one of these 2 games. We don't have the lines yet at the time of this recording because they haven't skated yet, but I think there's a real possibility, like we brought up and we talked about yesterday. Anthony Stolarz is from New Jersey, grew up in New Jersey. His favorite team growing up was the New Jersey Devils, so they play them tonight in their home opener. I can see Berube putting Stolarz, especially because he played great, back between the pipes tonight.
It'll be very exciting, and we will have you covered with the post-game stream, so make sure to tune into that. Hopefully the Leafs can take care of business and get a win, because it's going to be a big game. But let us know in the comments your thoughts are on that. We'll see you later.